Great pleasure to be here, and I would like first to thank the CTA for having this panel this year. We've tried to have it last year, but I was too late with my proposal, so thanks to you all. We are having it this year. It's never too late to start this conversation, I think. And we would like to start, first of all, introducing all the members of the panel.
Our moderator is Nicole Michel Desaget. She has been co-owner of Translingua, which has an office in New York and right here in Boulder since 2000. She has a degree in translation from a school in Zurich, which I believe is fairly unusual for translation agency owners. Translation agency owners are not always translators or interpreters themselves. Sometimes they're just business people, so she has some serious street cred among us here today.
Thank you. I'd like to start with Andy, since he so graciously volunteered to introduce me. I'll introduce Andy. I won't take a lot of time. We got to know each other when she was fresh out of college. She applied for a project manager's position. And at that time, my mother worked for us in our agency and picked up her resume and said, "That looks really interesting." And she comes from a school that even has a translation degree program. So she came to us fresh out of college and worked for us for several years in New York and in Boulder. And we're still friends and we're still colleagues. We're still working together. Can you describe your background a little bit for us?
I got a bachelor's in French from the University of Rochester in upstate New York, and then did my master's in translation at Kent State. I spent some time in France and then in Switzerland, which is, I think, kind of what piqued Nicole's interest. And I've been translating full-time since 2011.
Next to Andy, we have Kelly Music. Kelly is an interpreter here in Boulder, Denver area. And Kelly and I got to know each other professionally, actually, when we needed interpreters for a large conference in Estes Park. We have worked together ever since. We found many things in common, including this topic that we're going to discuss today. And we've become friends over time as well. Can you say something about yourself, please?
Well, I am just so honored to be a part of this really important panel. And as Nicole said, it's never too late to start this conversation. My basic background is that I went to undergraduate school at Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon, and got a degree in foreign languages, and then went on to do master's studies at Monterey Institute of International Studies and then University of Puerto Rico. I actually trained more academically as a translator, but the world took me down the path of an interpreter, so I have a lot of empathy and kind of understanding of the life of translation, but am an interpreter voice for this panel, I'd say, and do a little bit of work kind of gathering momentum around some of the things in the interpreter world that you all are doing as translators.
Exactly. Thank you very much. And last but not least, my colleague Stephen Lank here from Chesco.
Yes.
And we were actually connecting last year at this same conference for the first time. And we are continuing our conversation about various topics in the industry. We're both working for smaller LSPs. We're both, I think, faced with similar challenges. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background as well?
Okay, I've been working in the industry since 1987. I've got my master's degree from the Monterey Institute of International Studies, now the Middlebury Institute, in translation and interpreting for Spanish. But I've always worked on the agency side of things, the company side. I went after graduation directly into that. I've got experience working overseas. I was in Dublin for a while. I worked at a software localization company there. I was in Madrid for a while. I worked at a medical device localization company there. And then I came to Denver. That's how I got involved with CTA and all you wonderful people. And now I work for Chesco. Giovanna here in the front row, keeping an eye on me. But I work from Washington, D.C. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I work remotely, and I manage the translation side of that business. But I also am involved in industry standards, so I volunteer on the ASTM Standards Committee. I teach at the University of Maryland, so I'm on the teaching side, and I also volunteer on the board of the European Language Industry Association. So I'm kind of spread. I'm all everywhere. Fortunately or unfortunately, it depends on who you talk to.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
A little bit more about my background, just a touch. Grew up in Switzerland, multilingual environment, and basically learned 2 languages as a child, then was exposed to more at school, and pretty much knew that I wanted to be in language. Went to the Dolmetscherschule Zürich and got my BA there, and came to the United States. And pretty much very soon started working in a translation agency, then called the Language Lab. It was in New York. The Language Lab owners decided to retire in 2000 and asked me and another project manager if we wanted to take over the company. And we looked at each other, we're scared, and we said, oh my goodness, but we did it, we braved it, and here we are, we're still here. We're trying to develop the business continuously. We know our interpreters and translators very well because we're both from translator-interpreter background. My partner Ilaria is a translator as well. She does Italian, and she has also studied Chinese and Russian. So that makes us very close in touch with the industry, with translators.